Hi, thank you so much for participating in this speaker group. And we are so excited to have an alumni come back and talk to the students. And of course, you've been a faculty member here as well. So it's really awesome to have you back. To start out, would you introduce yourself? Because I know a lot of students don't know you, but kind of give them their idea of how you journeyed from your degree program into HR and to where you are today.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Kimberly Hartman, and I am currently a senior HR business partner for Indeed.com. I actually started out with the federal government. I used to work for the United States Postal Service there, and I actually started out as a mail carrier, and started my journey going back to school to get my bachelor's degree with Texas A&M Central Texas. And so, while working full time, I was going to school full time as well, and knew that I wanted to go into human resources. I was kind of one of those unique unicorns that knew I wanted to go into HR when I started my degree plan, but that was because my mother was an HR manager for about 20 years for Sally Mae. So I kind of had an idea of what HR was. But of course, going back to school really just kind of opened my eyes, and I really developed a passion for it while working for the government. So while I was with the government, I specialized in labor relations and HR compliance, working for about 12 and a half years there. And then I did a total 180 and went to the nonprofit sector. And I became a senior HR manager for the Armed Services YMCA. We had about four branches here in the Central Texas area that I was responsible for, a total of about 300 employees. And so with that, I got to actually experience standing that function up from the ground up. When I came in, there wasn't an actual HR function. There was someone who was doing HR types of duties, but they did not have an HR manager. And so when I came in, I literally remember I came in, there was my desk, and there was a laptop and a stack of files, and that was it. So it was a really a true test of my abilities and everything that I have learned from Texas A&M, obtaining my bachelor's and my master's degree, and then also being able to come in and learn how to put things together. And so that was for 4 years I was there, and I got to grow the department from just myself. I had HR generalists and two HR assistants. And so now I am working of course, as a senior HR business partner for Indeed.com. And in my part-time, I also am an adjunct faculty member for Texas A&M, teaching the Intro to HR courses and Principles of Leadership and Management. And then I'm also excited because I get to teach for the Society for Human Resource Management as well. I teach the SHRM certification courses for the SHRM CP and SHRM SEP. So those are, I have found that teaching has kind of really been a passion of mine that I really didn't know existed until about 4 years ago, when I started teaching out at the Gatesville prison system for Texas A&M. And I found that I really, really enjoyed it, and really being able to give back to students like me, having that real world experience, being able to walk them through the concepts as well, really, really, interested me. And then the students really responded well as well. So that's something that I continue to do as a passion as well. So I'm just excited to be here, and I love being able to give back. So being a part of this has been very special too.
So you mentioned that you had been part of building the entire HR function for this nonprofit with 300 employees. That is a wonderful learning experience.
Yes.
Can you share with the students how you went about making changes in the department and how you link them to organizational goals to help the organization compete in the marketplace?
Absolutely. So when I first came in, like I said, someone was doing kind of HR duties, just hiring and being able to process paperwork, but there was no real strategy. So one of the focuses for that nonprofit was childcare. And of course, childcare is just a high turnover industry, period. But there was no strategy of how do we attract childcare employees. Number two, being a nonprofit, our budget was something that was almost non-existent at times, right? So you had to get really, really creative of how are you going to go out there and really compete and say, hey, come work for us because, and then you have to fill in those blanks, right? Especially if you don't have the money to say, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars or, our benefits, right? So we had to get really creative in our marketing. We started partnering with some of the community colleges in the area, like Central Texas College, that have child development programs. And so in those programs, I found that those students needed to get some actual hours, laboratory hours in gaining that experience with child development, and those who, eventually would go on to be teachers. So I reached out to some of the faculty at Central Texas College, started developing a relationship with them. Myself and my generalist actually joined the board there for, and the name is escaping me right now, but there was an organization that they started just around Central Texas as well that focuses on childcare and making sure that they're able to find quality childcare and provide quality childcare in this area, because it is considered, low income at some points. And so once we partnered with them, we started, with getting volunteers first, making sure they went through the right background screenings and things like that. And so kind of created like a cross function where, as they're, going through their program there, they could come work for the Y. They could either volunteer, or if they actually had the time, they could actually work for us part-time in our before and after school program. So that was something that I was super proud about and super excited to be able to do. Because again, when you're going out into an industry that is already high turnover and high stress, you as an organization have to find very unique ways to set yourself apart. You have to be able to provide that employee value proposition. What is it in it for that employee, right? We know as an organization what's in it for us. We're getting the labor and we're being able to provide a service. But you have to, when you're going out, you have to almost be like a marketer and say, what's in it for that employee, and say, we provide a great culture. We may not have the best pay, but we have a great culture. We have great benefits. You're able to complete a second you're able to have, to accomplish two different things at the same time, right? Getting your education and being able to work part-time and support yourself and your family. And so those were types of things that we really, really had to focus on in that industry.
It sounds like you really had to identify what the right talent looked like in order to be attracted to your employee value proposition.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, how did you go about setting priorities for change in the department? You came in there, I'm sure there were a ton of things that had to be done at the same time. How did you set priorities? Was there anything in particular that helped you? And did you use any metrics in your assessment of your goals?
Absolutely. So to set priorities, we had to kind of talk with the executive director and find out what is the strategy for this organization. The YMCA being, well known for that name, being a community partner. That was something that the reputation was already there, but there was no actual function or actual strategy to start making some of those goals come to fruition. And so sat down, had, we did some SWOT analysis of, what we're doing, our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, the threats. And we kind of set priorities from there. What we did know is, because a big part, like I said, of that organization was childcare. We knew that we needed childcare staffing. And we had, for this area, we served about 22 schools with about 800 children a day in the before and after school program. And so with 22 schools, it's at least 2 people per school. We needed staffing, and we needed staffing very quickly, right? And not only staffing, just to have bodies, but we needed quality staffing, because these are people's children that we were talking about. So you had to have that desire, and you had to have that passion for childcare to be able to come in and really put forth the quality of childcare that we were trying to offer. So that was one of the ways that we identified that priority. Any metrics that we used was basically going back out, looking at in our community, finding out, we had partnerships with the local independent school districts, Killeen ISD, Coppers Cove ISD, Lampasas, Belton and Florence ISDs. We partnered with all of those. And so we used the metrics of, how many children, were in those communities that we were serving. And then we needed to know, where currently our staffing was. So we had to make sure that we went back, looked at those numbers and see, where do we have the staffing now? Do they have the right knowledge, skills, and abilities? Do we need to provide extra training and things like that? Because there does come compliance issues when you're working in licensed childcare too. So we had some training metrics that we had to make sure that we followed, and then we had to be able to go back and look and see, what type of childcare, what type of people that we could hire for these childcare positions as well.
So when you talk about training, you mentioned that some of the individuals that were applying didn't have the skills you were needing. There's this big controversy, or there's a big discussion in the news about the skills gap. And, when you talk about degreed labor, you've got 4 or 5 years to invest in degreed labor, as opposed to unskilled labor, where you're only investing maybe a week or a month or a year, depending on what type of training it is. Can you expand a little bit about the training that you provided and maybe why you decided to train those skills as opposed to maybe buying the talent? Was it because there wasn't anyone in the labor market, or can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So with a nonprofit specifically, our budget, again, is something that we were very budget conscious. So we could not go out and buy the talent. We knew we had to grow the talent from within. And so that was one of the projects that I worked on, was going and looking into a learning management system. For one, vetting some vendors and seeing what types of programs that were out there that we could offer to our staff as also part of the employee value proposition to attract talent to our organization. And then also, because we're licensed childcare, we could reach out to another type of resource, which was with the state government. Because you're licensed, you have access to different programs and activities that the state government had to offer that maybe some private businesses are not able to access. So I had to tap into those resources as well, and have people actually come out from different parts of the state to say, okay, hey, we're going to have training once a month on a Saturday for like 3 or 4 hours. And we're going to talk about different child development techniques. We're going to talk about, what's the proper way to diaper a child? What's the proper way, to keep your ratios when having children, to protect them on the playgrounds? What's the proper way to, engage children in group games and things like that? So being able to tap into those resources as well was very, very critical for us, especially because we didn't have the budget to just go out and maybe buy these different type of programs and bring them in. We had to rely on people who were willing to come in and share their time. Yes, we did have to invest, budgetary dollars, but we didn't have to invest as much as we would have if we would have went out to some private organization to find programs and bring them in. We utilized the state resources, and then being able to invest in a learning management system that had a heavy childcare focus as well was something that was very, very important for our organization.
So when talking about the training that you provided, length of training, about how long was each training piece?
Absolutely. So the training that we brought in using the state resources were about 3 to 4 hours, and we would bring them in on a Saturday, because of course, Monday through Friday during the week, that's when school was in. And of course, our staff was needed at the schools. So we would have Saturday mornings for 3 to 4 hours with a speaker that would come in and train on specific topics. With our learning management system, it was an on-demand type of system. So that was very, very important for us. They could, train anytime that they were, not working. And so those hours were provided, free to our employees. And then we had some that were mandatory as well that were paid trainings. And those trainings on the learning management system were anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes apiece.
Wow, that is really interesting. I know that Lowe's has an on-demand system as well, and it's up to the employees to go in there and upskill in order to move up into other positions within the organization. And they're also dealing with the low-skilled, low-wage labor market.
Yeah.
So very interesting. All right. So, talking about the entire piece, strategic HR, the recruiting aspect being a part of strategic HR and bringing in the needed talent. And looking, knowing that the students listening to you are management students or HR students or students who are undecided in their career path, what are your suggestions to them for skill development? What do they need if they want to get into a leadership position with an organization?
Absolutely. So they definitely have to be the one of the top skills I would say would be emotional IQ. One, because a lot of people, especially when they get into leadership positions, you find that they don't know how to talk and interact with people. And so, whether you're in HR or whether you're just in a general leadership role, being able to interact and deal with people is very, very important. You can have all of this, the IQ, and you can have all of these other types of skills, but if you don't know how to interact and to deal with people, you're not going to be very, very successful. So I would say definitely working on that. Also, I would encourage students to make sure that they're always in a place of learning and coming from a place where they are questioning. There's a great book that I have actually started reading over the last couple months, and it's called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Dr. Marilee Adams. And so one of the things that she talks about in her book is called questions thinking, and coming from a very curious type of position and making sure that you are able to think about problems a different way, right? Coming in, we always want to think about the answer first. What's the answer? And, we in society, we've seen that a lot of successful people are people that are known to have all the answers, right? But what you don't see behind the curtain is the questions that they ask to get to those answers. So being able to come from an inquisitive type of approach and saying, what is the most important thing that I need to know, especially when you're going into a business and tackling any business problem. What is our business strategy? What do we need to get out of this? What is the most important, metric or outcome that needs to happen from this? And then taking that step by step is something that can help you tackle just about any business decision that you need to make, especially going into any type of leadership role as well. I would also encourage students to get out there and market yourself. Everyone talks about being humble and coming from a place of humility, but you have to go out there and sell yourself. And the way that you sell yourself is going out and building authentic relationships with people, joining our organizations, giving back to your community, giving back to your business community as well is a great way to be able to, kind of showcase yourself and your skills and volunteering for different projects and going out there and just, like I said, just marketing yourself and your skills and being able to interact with people and give back is one of the greatest things that you can do too.
I really appreciate you talking to the students. If you wouldn't mind sending me that book recommendation, and I'll put it in the discussion part.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you so much for everything you shared with our students.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you.